Well, hello everyone. Here to show you the fair share coloring activity right here. As I will hand you right here is a picture example right here of a building, and on your hand to the building could be like I say in 3D it is, but basically right here is showing like I say is like 3D effects, and if most of us have had their practice with like Photoshop or Illustrator or any like any other programs, and maybe seen it before, is knowing about exactly about how do you actually draw any type of objects in 3D though. But basically talk about for fair share, and I can maybe think of a few examples of so far fair. If we're talking about maybe paying a bill, or if it's getting any type of settlement or anything like that, maybe through an insurance company or something like that, or maybe you're getting anything that's related to like maybe credit card debt or anything like that, credit card payments or loan payments, anything like that, interest payments, mortgage payments, you name it. But on your hand, that anybody that may wonder, like, what does a 3D building have anything to do with it? But my good question is knowing about that really about talking about with 3D prints. It is that basically that knowing about with nowadays, it seems like a lot of things in 3D are pretty much taking over anything that you do nowadays, such as what you call 3D newsletters, or if it's 3D papers, 3D comic books, whichever it is. But on your hand, you can maybe find them almost everywhere. But just knowing about with 3D though, that really, do we need to look at our bills in 3D? Do we need to look at the telephone or internet bill in 3D? It is, but on your hand, if we were to actually look at these buildings, and if we were to actually zoom in right here, and zoom into the the street right here, and I can go ahead and draw some examples right here of like say of a car, right down here it is, and I'm like trying to draw like in the lane right here, like if there was a car right here, and actually maybe some people walking down here, and then along with see here, go ahead and draw like just drawing dots, but let's just say that other than using the black, I can go ahead and use this the blue. Go ahead and maybe add some vehicles if they would be driving along. If it was like maybe downtown Chicago or somewhere like that, there could be maybe some people walking around, say down parts of downtown Chicago, that you maybe have like maybe a few shopping centers right here, and along with maybe like a building right here that could be like say like a shopping center. And basically that a lot of times like with 3D effects though, that they usually say by, which is like with most 3D effects that they go by is like the shape that if you were to start out with the shape and then add like what you call is like another I guess which call another part of the shape to make it look like that it's actually realistic. I guess you call it say for between artistic and realistic it is, but anyway, but the details that I'm putting right here is for the buildings. I went ahead and drew right here is like for the outline, for let's say also known as like maybe a stroke. It is for the buildings though. But so far as talk about with fair share, if anybody has ever taken a taxi cab or any type of bus or anything like that, knowing about the fair share amount of money that you could be paying for like any type of ride, it is for like if you were to take a taxi ride somewhere, and knowing about that how much it costs, knowing about that whenever we look at our bills, it is a lot of times like wondering about if most of us know what I'm talking about whenever they add the taxes and fees on there, along with the local service, or if it's the city taxes or anything like that. And a lot of times though that we may wonder though that about the tax rates, and then along with any other type of fees that may apply. And I don't know, I'm like that a lot of us who do pay our bills, if it's every month or first of the month or something like that, of knowing about our fair share, of course, of our responsibility, knowing about the fair share of the bills, and then I guess you say our chores. It could be also known as you say our chores. But let's just say that with these buildings right here, if they would maybe to represent maybe say like a 3D motion picture, is like if it was downtown Chicago, or if it was Iowa, parts of, a big city like Iowa where you have these big buildings right here, and I'm going to go and use right here is a little bit of the black and go ahead and color in a little bit at the top of the buildings right here. Just, color in a little bit at the top of the buildings is like if they were kind of sticking out, and anybody that may wonder, like, yeah, with 3D, that a lot of things are going 3D now, that either 3D, digital prints and all the other things that are 3D, and basically it's like for 3D that to make it look like it's actually that anybody that may wonder like exactly about what does 3D mean, it basically means is something that makes something that gives it that effect, something that is added to the picture to give it that effect to where it's actually coming out of the page it is. And anybody that may wonder like with 3D though, do I often draw in 3D? Not really, but these are kind of like building kind of examples right here. Knowing about if I want to go ahead and use the black and the blue right here, is use examples right here of like an example right here of a 3D building, and basically that working with these two different colors, like working with the outline and working towards, you say, the inside, the details of the building, and really that. Like with anything in 3D though, that knowing about that, you basically see, I say of a 3D building, that you basically see is like a little bit more realistic stuff. But knowing about if there's any rooms inside the building, that kind of reminds me of one of those movies like monster movie, like such as Godzilla or something like that. They're walking around the city and they actually. Walking near a building, and then there's a few rooms or something like that in there, and that they actually see. But anyway, you have these buildings right here. In a lot of ways, though, with these buildings, talk about, say, for the fair share, if they have a building right here, and let's just say that if it's going to cost maybe $150 billion or something like that to build something like a big skyscraper it is, and then they open up a few businesses it is, and on about maybe the cost of renting them out or something like that. But anyway, use right here is maybe the purple. Go ahead, maybe add like say a car driving down here. If this is like 6th Avenue or 5th Avenue or something like that. But anyway, any details that more likely that I would want to go ahead and put into this work of art right here. If you have a car right here, and a car right here, and then you got a car driving right here, and then from there, and then it goes by saying it's like for 3D, with 3D effects that basically that they are basically effects that apply to where that if you want to add some, like let's say, some effects, like if most of us have used like those programs such as transform, and along with say rotation tool, a lot of the things that if we were for like the latest version of, let's say, of like maybe a Photoshop or Illustrator, that we'd be able to apply any type of effects, so using the shapes and stuff, but try doing this by hand. And I can tell anybody here that it looks like a lot of work, and really that I'm sure that there's other professional ways of how to draw something like this, maybe in 3D, such as a lot of people will probably say that it works better just by maybe starting out with something that's already drawn and just color in a little bit of it's like with the outlines it is. But a lot of times I usually go by, it's like start out by scratch. It's like I start with a blank piece of sketch paper and just add on details from there. But and then you could have like say a parking lot about right here. It has like maybe a few cars, something like that. You want to add some cars right there. But anyway, if that looks too much in 3D, I didn't tell anybody here that I appreciate any comments that really about what you all think about this artwork right here. If you think it looks 3D, or if it looks about the same, whichever it is, maybe something that you would see on one of those old Game Boy Color games or something like that. But anyway, but you have right here is the details right here. You add in right here for like 3D effects. And anybody that may wonder about that, anything about talk about with bills, if it's going to be related to bills, or if it's going to be paying a fair share of something it is. I'm talking about so far for fair share, it basically means by so far as equal. I guess it's like for the equal amount for agreement. And basically that each piece, I guess you could say, each piece more likely that goes by saying them, like you put it together and then what do you got? But anyway, but knowing about that I talk about a lot of times if you're going to pay a bill or anything or write today's date, something like that, like for today would be it would be Friday. It would be Friday, March the 13th. It is of 2015. Some people that may think that hey, like that if you want to put it today, and sometimes they may say like, well, it's Friday, Friday, and what time is it? But anyway, but there you are. You have right there is like for the 3D share for the the fair share. What I mean for fair share, and I can say that I can go ahead and real quick go ahead and draw some more details right here. It's like for the the buildings right here, if they would be like say different colors. I don't really know exactly about the types of different colors. The buildings. Most of them that I have seen were like say a black and then a blue and then of course a gray type color. But let's just say that if this was like a city and then like maybe a few trees down here. Go ahead, if I want to go ahead and add a few trees and then maybe some shopping centers, whichever it is, along, say, the street here and like the buildings. Like, yeah, exactly, that you're going to draw a lot of things in place and then knowing exactly about, what are they, like their buildings and then where are they business buildings or federal offices buildings or anything like that. But, and I can go ahead and maybe add some details right here. It's like for this building right here. Let's go ahead and add, like say, maybe a little bit of stroke right here. And then add, like say, the top of the building. The top of the building that could represents, like it could be like maybe a statue on top of the building represent, for the architecture of design, say, of the building. But other than that, so far for like 3D effects, though, that basically goes by saying like for fair share, knowing about that that a lot of people probably say, well, that's not fair. Well, you're not going to no settlement or anything like that, or anybody that may say about the day that make that much money maybe on their taxes. And I'll tell anybody here that this year I didn't get that much money, of course, on my tax. But on your hand too, that knowing about that so far as a fair share, knowing about that we a lot of times, though, that if we were to think about it, it's like the amount of credit, of course, that we give, to each other, knowing about for whatever we do, and knowing about that, to get for whatever that we have to get done is, to try to get it done, as soon as we can, and knowing about, say, for fair share, knowing about it's a time for where knowing about that for what's fair and what's not fair. I'm knowing about for what's not fair. I'm knowing about whoever that gets the biggest amount that don't deserve the biggest amount or whatever or something like that. That a lot of times that talk about is like for the so far as talk about say for fair share. And all I do to calculate the math and so far as fair share the groups of talk about between each your person to be treated divide equally. I'm knowing about who gets what, but. Other than that, we probably think about, for whoever that's the oldest gets the most or something like that, gets the biggest if it's their special day or something like that. But anyway, I can go ahead and maybe add some more details right here for the buildings. The buildings right here, if like there will be like maybe a few lights or something like that on the buildings. But anyway, that type of 3D stuff, I was just thinking about that, so far as the fair share that. A lot of times with anybody would probably think that a lot of 3D stuff that you expect to pay for like if it was a newspaper or a comic book or anything like that, but knowing about the things that you would like to see inside of like say a 3D effect, type of comic book. If the lights, if the ink glows in the dark, it's like we have right here. If you want to have some, a little bit of the ink, from the comic book that glows in the dark, or that you can actually see it more clearly, that anybody that may wonder that any type of comic book that we may want to buy is have it to where if you want to go ahead and have, like, say, the zoom, I don't know if you'll be able to see that much on, say, on an old pair of glasses, but kind of like an example you have right here is maybe like the zoom options to where allow you to where you can zoom in on the picture, like, see, digital a reader or something like about that size it is, where you can actually focus and then zoom in and zoom out and get a better glance at whatever that you want to read about, or whatever that you want to look at. Anything that may just look like a picture to you that, like, say, in 3D, that there may be more detail whenever you zoom in there and you actually see the details of the building. And I can maybe say that one thing that I could maybe add, of course, is like a shadow. If most of us have seen, like, say, on most 3D arts, it is that if you want to go ahead and maybe, like, add, like, say, a shadow right here. It's like a shadow that represents, it's like the building, and then if there's a building right next door or something like that, I talk about, that if this is supposed to be, I don't know if it looks anything like, maybe downtown Manhattan or something like that, or, Chicago, Des Moines, Iowa, whichever it is, but type of city like that. But anyway, but basically talk about, it's like, for fair share of talk about between equal, knowing about, it's like for, well, exactly what does fair share mean? I'm knowing about, it's like for whichever that can get worked out equally between, it's like the amount you say for the agreement for each piece I'm knowing about right here. And so far as talk about between that's not fair or fair, okay, for fair share, talk about, say, for fair share color activity. Well, hello everyone, to talk about it here for fair share. Anybody that may wonder about that, if you pay, $100 or something like that, for like a calculator. And I can go ahead and use a calculator as an example, because anybody that may wonder, I'm like, besides what you call is like, besides, maybe, piece of notebook paper, whichever it is. But anyway, like with the calculator, something that you can do your math homework on. And basically, though, that we may wonder about, this part right here, is considered what you call, an electronic screen, to where you can do a number of math problems within about, at least 15 problems or something like that, without having to clear your data. And a lot of times, anybody that may wonder about, like, say, with the calculator, something that slides and it has easy storage, and it don't come with no rechargeable batteries. And at the time, anybody probably think about it, you get rechargeable batteries for it and be able to put that recharge. But all you hate to know about, with most of us, would maybe think that anything that you buy at the store, knowing about really, if you get a fair deal or not, like talking about, it's like with the calculator of if it, some things that there may be a button on here that may not work either. I'm like talking about, that if I were to go ahead and turn it on right here, and it looks like it works, but if there was a button that didn't work, such as like say the see 1 2 see 1 2 3. It's like if you say dial, say for 1 2 3. I think actually 7 7 8 9. I'm like, exactly. Well, for whatever reason, I'm thinking that the numbers 1 2 3 are on the top. Anyway, here we are. For 1 2 and 3, and then you have right there. It's like you have a math problem right here for. For 7, 8, and 9, it looks like in a 1, 2, 3. Anybody that may wonder about, really, can you read backwards? Can you read upside down? Well, I talk about, if you'd be able to read the math problem like that, like an, But anyway, that you talk right here is talk about between fair share. And anybody may think that, I'm not really making a joke about, but on your hand, that knowing about the things that more likely some people are able to do, that maybe some things that some people are not able to do you call that fair, or do you kind of call that, well, that's just something that they can do? But on your hand, that they do the math problems, and anybody that may think about it so far would just call is like for the brainstorming it is, and knowing about that anything that maybe you can do within an amount of minutes, and then of course seconds, though, maybe faster than a few people, and knowing about anybody probably think about that, like we need to get you on our team. But other than that, talking about with fair share, but if it's working like a calculator, it's like so far graphing, and then on your hand too with tracing as well. Let's see here if I can get that to change, and I'll zoom in and okay, clear that, and then see here clear. But anyway, a few things that of course that this calculator can do that I haven't used everything. I haven't used I have not used everything that's on this calculator, but anyway, but yeah, it's a couple, it's, I think it was over $50 or so, a couple, quite a few bucks for the calculator. I think I bought this about 3 years ago, and I can remember whenever I bought this, I wanted to get prepared for college one of these days, and I keep thinking that yeah, that since I am in college now, that I keep thinking that well, like so far as your fair share of preparedness, but with how much money that you're willing to put into maybe a few school supplies that you want to get, and then on your hand, if it's going to be anything like an external hard drive, and like anybody that may wonder about with a calculator that even though if you don't use it half the time, I guess it's always you, because really that what would the calculator, what would it, for any reason at all, if a calculator were to expire, then what do you think it would like really, how could it expire? Because we've been using them for many years, and half the time wondering about, well, if your calculator is expired, and then you had to buy a new one. But on the other hand, let's just say if the model was discontinued, or let's just say in class that they say you had to upgrade to a new style type calculator, other than it's like for general instrument, if it's like anything such as the kind of the economic train code or something like that, the economic train code, or any type of graphic, whatever calculator that you may need for class. And with anybody that may wonder that calculator is a calculator, but there is that type of calculator that more likely that can do a number of things. And like on this calculator, I remember on my freshman year in high school, I can remember that I seen people, they actually were able to download games on the calculator, and a lot of times that I kept thinking about that. I thought about getting one, and I remember seeing them at the store, and I at the time like wondering, I seen how expensive they were, and somebody suggested, I'm like, don't get one unless you need to. But on the other hand, that they say that whenever you get them, that there's like games and stuff like that you can play on them. But on the other hand too, that knowing about it, I just kind of kept it around, and at the time, whenever you have something like this, such as a graphic calculator or any type of calculator, that you may do a few math problems on those, but it seems like at the time that really that back whenever I got this, it was before I was a student, so I'm sure that one of these days that whenever I do taking a lot of math lessons, I may more likely need something like this. And then they may say that you may have to download a program, and of course if there's any type of subscription or anything like that that's required, and then I may have to take care of. But other than that, to talk about, let's say with the calculator though, is that we say a fair share of how much money you put into, how much time that you put into something it is, and knowing about that really, well, that's not fair, because after all, are you telling me that this is the wrong calculator, that I bought the calculator and I can't use it because it's not the right one for class, or anything like that? And if anybody were to be going around shopping, and they'll be going out looking for something, that a lot of times that the last thing they have to worry about is like that you need it says on here the TI you say 83 plus or something like that, and then a new one on our market could be like, we say that the TI 1002 or something like that, 1002 extremist kind of brain calculator. And anybody that may wonder, like, what's the difference? But I guess there's other types of math problems that you can do on just maybe one basic calculator, and one type of calculator, say between basic and extremado, or anything like that. And that the more features that may have on it, the more expensive it is. But on the hand too, that knowing about between fair share of knowing about that if you had to borrow a calculator or any amount of money or something like that later on, and
pay it back, and then the next thing you know, I'm like, yeah, that could maybe get you some experience until you're able to get your own. And at the time, I'm like wondering from over the years, I don't know about by the time you actually can afford something, and then to find out that yeah, can I still use it? But on the other hand too, that knowing about that, well, more likely, yeah, of course, you could probably still use it. But on the other hand, that we may think that it's so far I haven't heard anything yet on when I can use it. But anybody that may think that, well, I'm sure it'll become handy. Just keep it around, take good care of it, and I'm sure that anybody probably think about, yeah, that even if it does break, like anybody that may wonder about, like, yeah, between the old style and the old-fashioned calculators, one that could maybe last for years, and they may say that that there's like a battery pack. I'm like, I don't know. With most calculators, that this one right here takes like the AAA, not the. See, yeah, I think it's AAA backup battery. And there may be calculators out there that may have a battery pack you connected to like a USB connector, and then it charges up. It's like have a battery pack, and it may have like what you call is like a trace finder. If like you have, like say for trace finder, like a little LED light that comes up on the top where you can actually find it in case if you lose it somewhere, or anything that has page or anything that's related to it changes color. Whenever between right or wrong answer between ding 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 But other than that, I talk about right here of knowing about for fair share of a talk I say with the calculator, and anybody that may wonder, I'm like, yeah, that and 95 to 100 or something like that dollars for a calculator, and then plus tax, it's like, well, I'm like, ain't that kind of a rip-off? But on the other hand too, we probably think about, yeah, with the calculator though, a calculator with a screen this size, I'm sure that we can probably do at least maybe up to maybe 45 different math problems. You're talking about between long division and subtraction. I'm like, if I can remember right, as long as there's like a second, and I remember that my math teacher one time said that some calculators, they even do some of the math problems automatically. All you have to do is just learn how to work the control of the buttons. And like with anybody, that something like this, if we see a few buttons right here that may not be so complicated compared to some other instruments that we may have used in class, and I can maybe name a couple of them besides, you say, program like. Or then besides like Photoshop, or if it's besides InDesign, or if it's going to be anything related to the Tamagotchi Word, Tamagotchi documentation, Microsoft, any type of honey programs or anything like that we may wonder. I'm like, exactly. It's like between what's hard and what's complicated. Whenever if we're on a job or if we're in class, it is. Anything that we may say that I tell you one thing, okay, I ain't got time, okay, for this, okay? When something's real hard, then I'm just gonna go ping, like ding ding. I think I'm gonna throw that thing out the window. But on your hand, that we could probably think about that anything that we may do is that really that. Between like what you call, I don't know, I'm like talk about between combing our hair and cleaning our glasses and maybe putting, dressing you up, for that morning day, you say at work or something like that. We could probably think about, that's when something's hard, a lot of times, if it's more challenging, and some people probably just don't want to mess with it. But on the other hand, too, don't want to bother, don't want to take the time, maybe to follow their taxes, pay a bill, whichever it is. But on the other hand, one thing to remember, of course, is knowing about that with most of the time, that they say that one way in order to learn is just take it one step at a time. It's talk about, it's like to just start out, say, with a small portion, of course, from the calculator, and just kind of get familiar with, say, what the buttons basically mean, and taking the time to actually study. Just time to study about the words, say, on the keyboard, and along with if for whichever that you see, and then just kind of understand it more. And I'm sure that the time that it takes for you to study something, and then just get practice with something, and work on it, that I'm sure that they say that will improve the skills. But anyway, other than that, that's all for right now. But anyway, thanks for watching, and so far, like I said, for talk about say for the fair share, like I say with the coloring, so far as for me is like for me, and I talk about right here, so I say for fair share.